And everybody else, seriously, I do not mind questions as we go along. So if you want to chime in and tell a story or ask a question or something like that as we go along, that's okay. Or if you'd rather just put it in the chat, Megan's agreed to kind of be the chat monitor and ask those questions or bring those things up. Looking at the crowd that we have, a lot of you I know have had food safety classes before. So some of this is just refreshers. Why do we always talk about holiday food safety? And I think one of the reasons is quite often it's people are cooking food that they haven't cooked in a year. This year, it may be people are cooking food that they've never cooked before. They've never been home alone and the one responsible for that turkey that usually someone else cooks. Quite often it's recipes you haven't tried before or you haven't done in a year, your refrigerator's full. You know, quite often it's different people in the house than usual, so people are helping. That may not necessarily be the case this year, but lots of extra opportunities for potential problems for foodborne illness. And I use the term foodborne illness. Lots of folks call it food poisoning, but it really isn't poisoning in that terms, but it's people getting sick from either food or water. And most of the time, this can happen from bacterias, from viruses, from parasites, other pathogens that you can't see, you can't taste, you can't smell. People know spoilage kinds of things, but the ones that we're really concerned about, we can't tell that they're really there. Over 250 different foodborne illnesses out there, foodborne diseases. The statistics from Center for Disease Control say about 48 million people get sick from a foodborne illness every year. That's 1 in 6. So I'm looking at who we have, on board today, and you can say that probably 2 of you have been sick sometime this past year from a foodborne illness. But even more so, they say for every 1 person that goes to a doctor about it, there are probably about 30 people out there that have gotten sick and just not reported it, that they have gotten well without the need to go to a doctor. The other thing I just want to stress is, well, we never ever really want to make somebody sick from the food that we eat, the food that we cook, the food that we prepare. But right now with COVID, we really don't want to be sending somebody to an emergency room with a foodborne illness. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, I think this holiday, we need to start the discussion with COVID and where are we related to food safety and COVID. The COVID recommendations, and you're hearing left and right from everybody about what they're saying about groupings and how many you can have in your house and who should come and that sort of thing. And I'm not going to talk about that, but I really want to talk just briefly about COVID itself is not a food safety issue. Both the CDC and the USDA are not aware of any reports of somebody getting sick from the food itself or even food packaging related to COVID. They know that it is a people-to-people transmitted disease. And the problem with all of us getting together for holidays tends to be lots of people inside buildings and having to take your mask off to eat. When you take your mask off, then it's the potential of transmitting through talking, through spitting, through that sort of thing. So when you look at this list of what to do, maintain personal hygiene, that's probably the #1 thing to think about here. The hand washing, sanitizers, and that's normal. I mean, this is a slide that we teach all the time, pandemic or no pandemic. Limit the time the food is in that temperature danger zone, cook to proper temperatures, and clean and sanitize surfaces. So things that we've seen year in and year out, but need to think a little bit about some of those person-to-person transmissions that may be happening this holiday. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Just basic, there are 4 basic food safety principles: cleaning, separating, cooking, and chilling. And we've talked again about these over and over again. Briefly, we'll just go on to each one of them. Cleaning, wash your hands, countertops, surfaces, cutting boards, rinsing, washing fruits and vegetables, wash your kitchen towels and cloths frequently. Things we need to do all the time. Martha asked, she's been leery of ordering takeout because the preparers would be touching the packaging. Again, they have not linked packaging and touching. What you can do is if you're bringing takeout into your home and you're afraid that someone has touched it that may have been exposed to the illness, keep washing your hands. Open those packages, wash your hands. Open those packages, wash your hands before you touch your nose, before you touch your eyes, those kinds of things. But it would not be in the food. The food actually, if it were on the food and you consumed it, the studies have shown that the stomach acid would destroy it. So you're not getting, and it's a respiratory illness, not a stomach illness. So, you've got to get it into your lungs and your respiratory tract. So that's back to all that hand washing kinds of things. They have traced people getting sick in restaurants, but it's not been to the food itself, but it's been to the servers not having masks and people talking to other people without masks and people talking to other people while they're eating. So let's go on to clean. That's the first of the first four cores, for basic food safety, fresh fruits and vegetables, scrubbing, all of those things that I would tell you regular. Remember those. You get hurried, you get busy, lots of food to cook, you forget those kinds of things. Next slide. Usually at this time of year, we talk an awful lot about cross-contamination and separating the food, especially for buffets. When people, have large groups and everybody's helping themselves, that is some cross-contamination. We're real concerned about that again this year with your serving large groups or even smaller groups in your home. Maybe have a specific server to be touching the utensils. But cross-contamination. Megan, can we go to the next slide? About temperature. We've got clean, we've got separate, which is cross-contamination. Then we have cooking, and I already heard someone talk about the temperature of the food and how long they're going to cook the turkey, that sort of thing. Holding hot foods hot at over 135, keeping cold foods cold. Color is not a good indicator of deadness. So use a food thermometer. Back to that cross-contaminate. I wanted you to notice this Barf Blog logo there. It's Stick It In from Barf Blog. If you have not listened or gone to Barf Blog, it is a blog. I get emails from them a couple of times a week. It's written by our state specialist, Ben Chapman, and another former food safety specialist, Dr. Doug Powell. And it's a good update on food safety kinds of things that are happening in the world. So if you don't subscribe to Barf Blog, that might be a place that you could go. It's www.barfblog, two words, but not separated.com. Okay. And then chill. And that's the next one is, keep your refrigerator at 41 degrees or below. Try to keep your freezer at 0. Refrigerate food as quickly as possible after eating. Don't defrost things at room temperature and keep cold foods cold. All right, let's move on. I think, wanted to talk just briefly. This is a food safety issue, but lots of folks don't necessarily think about that. Handling allergens are people that are coming to your home or people that you're preparing something special for allergic. There are some basic foods, milk, eggs, tree nuts, shellfish, fish itself, soy, peanuts, and wheat. They're the most common food allergies, but there are other folks that have other illnesses or allergies. We call this cross contact, not necessarily cross contamination. When, say, you have a spoon in the in a sweet potato casserole that has nuts, and someone picks up that spoon and puts it in the green bean casserole that doesn't have nuts. The person that's allergic to nuts then eats the green beans, they might get sick because of the allergy. I have 2 sisters, and both of them have become allergic to something old, more as they've aged. And I remember a holiday that we had recently that things that we always had made in the past were fine. And then all of a sudden, my sister's reaching for something, and I went, oh, Michelle, that has nuts in it. We forgot. So be thinking about people with allergies, and is it a potential problem? Worry about that contacting the food, even if they're not eating it. It may be right there on the table with plates and dishes and silverware, that sort of thing. And I want to talk, the next slide talks about Yopi people. And this is a word we've been using, Yopi. Don't forget about the special guests. Again, maybe not as big a deal this year because perhaps we're not inviting as many people into our homes. And we've been hearing a lot about people that are more susceptible, to illnesses this year. Yopi, young people, babies, children, the very young, they have not developed their immune system yet. They might get sick from something that you as a healthy adult would not. The same as the elderly. As we get older, I hate it when they say that, but as we get older, our immune systems start to weaken again. So something that you may have eaten your whole life and never thought anything of might make you sick now as you get older. Pregnant women, unborn babies, a risky situation. And also we've been hearing a lot this year about immune compromised people, people with cancer treatments, people that already have lung infections, people that have lung illnesses, heart disease, high blood pressure, kidney disease, organ transplant people, all a little bit more susceptible. So take care with those special guests and really think that who's coming and what are we making that's more traditional, perhaps that maybe have a risk involved. Okay, let's go on and let's go on to the first poll question. We're not going to look at your answers right now. We'll just go on to the first poll question. Washing your turkey before cooking. And don't you just love this picture of Julia? I mean, we all love Julia. Julia says we need to wash our chicken. You wash your chicken, right? She always said to do it. She goes, she always said, I think it's just safe thing to do. What do you all think? Deb's shaking her head. I can see Deb on my computer. Okay. This is one of those things that that's B, or the second answer. We should not be washing poultry in general. Washing poultry does not kill bacteria. Only that heat will kill that bacteria. So there's pathogens like Salmonella and Campylobacter, the things that we find mostly on poultry. And what they found is if you put that in your sink and you let the water splash down on it, it can actually splash those pathogens up to 3 feet around your kitchen counter, what's sitting on the counter. Maybe you've got a relish dish sitting there or food that's not going to be cooked, and you could splash those pathogens on it. I know that's one of those things that, like mom did it, so I always do it. We had a class once and we were talking about this, and a lady just absolutely just could not hardly, she says, I can't do that. I can't do that. I have to wash it. It's something that people have always done. I know when you get that big giant turkey out of the freezer and you look at it, and there might still be some ice crystals on the inside. There may be some blood kind of things that you want to get out of it. If you want to put it in your sink and do some drying with paper towels. Just be careful to not spread those juices around. That kitchen sink is probably one of the riskiest places in your kitchen. If you're doing all that, it might be a really good idea to sanitize and clean that sink out really good. Make sure nothing other on the counter as you're going along with cleaning that turkey out. Let's go on to the next one. What do you think? Yeah, Deb.
Question. Okay,
Sure.
so this, I don't know, I can't remember if this is going to come up in our questions, but I bought a turkey that the sell-by date was the 26th of November, and I was going to cook it then, so I figured it was fine, and it's a fresh turkey. Should it be fine? Because I'm going to be cooking for a Yopi person.
How long has it been in your fridge?
A while.
Okay. Dr. Chapman did and I'm going to recommend this later, that you listen to this Facebook Live that Dr. Chapman did last week. And he talked a little bit about how long are we keeping fresh turkeys in our refrigerators. And Deb, I know that your refrigerator is a good temperature. And I know you rushed it home from the grocery store and put it in there. So you've kept it cold. They said there may be a little off flavors for these that are older. But you're right on the date. So if you've kept it good, I wouldn't have a fear about it. Especially if you use, cooking to the proper temperature.
Okay. Thank
you. Okay. Let's do the next question. The refrigerator is so full of food. We store our leftovers in the garage, in the sunroom, in the porch, or obviously you see this one, none of the above. If you need a new storage area, the recommendation is to go with a cooler with some ice in it. You never know. My garage gets really warm from the sun shining in the morning and the car motors, that sort of thing. The same with the sunroom, the porch outside. So folks have been talking about the critters have been coming by and sampling things that neighbors have left on the porch for them. So if you can come up with a better way than sitting it in the garage or sitting in the porch, you're going to be sure to keep that back to that chill. We kind of want those leftovers under 40 degrees and can't really guarantee. Terrific. I don't know who that is. So none of the above. Okay, let's go to the next question. All right, it's Wednesday afternoon and the turkey's still in the freezer. What do you do? Now, I remember this a long time ago. Some of you may remember the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. This was before Jay Leno. It was a Monday night monologue and they laughed at him because he said, if your turkey's still in the freezer, forget it, cancel Thanksgiving. Can't do anything about it. So that's an interesting situation, but you don't need to cancel Thanksgiving. A couple things you can do. And the answer that I thought would be the right answer here is cook the frozen turkey. You can take a turkey completely frozen solid and put it in your oven and cook it from that state. Now you're going to have about halfway through or whenever it gets soft enough, you're going to have to pull those giblets out. They're in there. Actually, if you buy a frozen stuffed turkey, that's how they tell you to do it. They don't want you to thaw a frozen stuffed turkey out. They want you to put it straight into the oven directly. It's going to take about 50% more time, which means if you have a 20-pound turkey, regular would take about 5 hours. This is going to take about 7.5 to cook. But you don't have to cancel the holiday. I noticed on the poll that some of you said, put it in a pan of cold water. Let's go to the next slide. And perhaps this was a trick question on my part because you can thaw turkeys in cold water. You need to put it in a sink or a container with cool water. And the key is you have to change that cold water every 30 minutes. And it's going to take about a half an hour for every pound of turkey to thaw out, which means if you have a 20-pound turkey, you've got 10 hours of going in there every 30 minutes and changing the water and keeping it cool. I think it's a lot of water, a lot of time, a lot of attention, but it can happen. So maybe I'll correct myself on this slide that B is an option and C is a potential option if you're working on it. I just definitely wouldn't go with A or D at this point. Okay, let's go on. How do you know when your turkey's done? What are people saying? What did the poll say? Do you remember? Lots of people were getting this one right.
I don't remember exactly what the poll said. I think I could pull it up and we could see.
That's okay. Okay, it was okay. I think I was seeing some A's and B's. And actually, you don't want to count on that pop-up timer. They can give you lots of false readings. And it actually is right there in just one spot. And recommendations are to check your turkey in several spots with a thermometer. So you can see from the picture here, they want you to go to the thickest part of the breast, an innermost part of the thigh, an innermost part of the wing, check it. And it needs to be 165 in all of those spots. So they've come up with a great, that great invention of a pop-up timer, but they've done some testing and it doesn't always work. The tried and true has always been when juices run clear. But again, that's kind of color and not a tried and true method to prove that your turkey's done.
Many years ago, we were relying on the pop-up timer because it had always worked in the past. And that doggone thing didn't pop. That was a dry bird.
It never popped, right? Yeah. Quite often it'll give false positives, but in your case, it gave a false negative. What happens sometimes is where it's stuck down in the turkey, a lot of fat starts to collect at the very tip of the pop-up timer. So that fat gets hot faster. And that would cause it to pop up before the rest of the turkey's done. And it doesn't go all that deep when you think about it, into the breast. Okay, let's go on to pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie should be kept, on the counter like fruit pies? In the refrigerator? It depends, or in the freezer? So let's move on. Answer is, it depends. It really depends on who made that pie. And then you can see the visual here says pies purchased at room temperature from a grocery store may be stored at room temperature. And the reason for that is, well, let me go back to the fruit. Fruit pies have lots of sugar in them. And the sugar is the protective factor in this pie. It slows down the water activity, so it slows down the spoilage and it slows down mold growth, that sort of thing. So we know that fruit pies are okay at room temperature. What happens with a pie like pumpkin or sweet potato, vegetable pies, they're low acid foods, vegetables, plus the ones in the grocery store, the recipes have been tested, or perhaps they've even had for the water activity, or perhaps they've even had a preservative added to them. So grocery store pies at room temperature are okay. But think about homemade pies. What's in a homemade pumpkin pie? Eggs, cream, the vegetables themselves, some sugar, but not a tested amount to know if that's enough sugar to stop that water activity. So we just don't know. So if you've made a homemade pie, the best bet is to get it into that refrigerator and keep it into that refrigerator. And that also refers to other cream pies, pies that have been made with milk and eggs and sugar and those kinds of things. Just for safety's sake, unless you know for sure that that recipe's been tested for room temperature, I wouldn't go there. No. Okay, let's move on. Questions? Are we good with this one? Stuffing. What do you think about stuff? Okay, I want to see a poll. Who likes stuffing in their turkey? Okay, I think I can raise my hand. We like our family. I think, you know, Paul, you said earlier in a message, your wife really wanted stuffing cooked in the turkey. My family likes stuffing cooked in the turkey. It's juicier because all of that juice from the turkey goes into the bread and it tastes great. But all that juice from the turkey also contains all that bacteria, that Campylobacter or that Salmonella that may be in the turkey. We don't know. So you need to make sure that definitely number C here, that it's heated to 165. Most official recommendations say don't cook it in the turkey. When you think about it, what used to be in the inside of that turkey right there where the stuffing goes? It's the deepest part of the turkey. So it's going to be hardest to get it to that 165 temperature. So recommendations are to cook it separately in a casserole dish, but I know that that's not what most families want. So get that thermometer out, test the inside, the deepest part of that stuffing. The big problem with that is if the stuffing gets to 165, probably your white meat is dried out a little bit because the white meat's outside, the stuffing's on the inside there. I like to get my stuffing when I'm doing it, get the stuffing hot before it even goes into the bird. If I'm putting meat or something like that, you need to make sure that that meat, seafood, whatever is going inside the stuffing, warm when you put it in there. That'll get it, jump started into getting to that 165. Okay, let's see what the next slide talks about. Oh, leftovers. And this probably is going to be one of the bigger problems of this holiday season is we bought a turkey for that'll feed 20 people, but there only 4 are coming. And that was a problem, I guess, at the grocery stores. People were looking for smaller turkeys and they weren't available. So people were still forced to buy a 16, 18, 20-pound turkey. So you're going to have a lot of leftovers. So the key here is all of the above. Break large bits into smaller bits and get them in the refrigerator quickly. Get the leftovers in the refrigerator, we're saying 2 hours, and then use or freeze those leftovers within 4 days. Lots of families have a tendency to leave the turkey, sit out, pick at it all afternoon, make sandwiches and then put it away for dinner. No. Get it in the refrigerator as soon as possible. Make it, break down into smaller containers if that'll help. Just don't let them sit at room temperature. And let's see, I think we got one more question. Oh no, that was it. That was the last of our questions. Okay, I'm going to ask, how many people think they got all of them right? No, got all right. Very good. That's from living with Megan. I could tell my husband would get them all right too. He says, I've been living with her too long. I know those answers. All right, I won't poll. You guys know where you're at. These are this next one. These are my 6 food safety practices for the holidays, but all the time. I think I need to make a poster and put this up on the wall in my office. Wash hands frequently. If you don't have one, get some thermometers for your refrigerator and your freezer. Use washable cutting boards and wash them often. Don't do that cross-contamination stuff. Get a food thermometer. A digital tip-sensitive food thermometer works great. Get a chart so you know what the proper temperature should be. And then I like to call the 2-hour rule. Don't let food sit out at room temperature for more than 2 hours. Keeping that chill part of the factor. Okay. So these are kind of Cheryle's simple rules. Okay, I had to put this in. I had to put this one in. I think this is the meme of the year that just makes me laugh and laugh, is especially as a food safety person. I'm deeply disturbed by how many people seem to think that washing their hands is a new thing. It's right up there on the top of every list from forever and ever. We just need to keep thinking about washing hands and working with folks to, that's our number one prevention kind of thing. Keep our hands clean and keep our hands away from our respiratory system. I want you to see the next slide too. I found this in a restaurant near Calabash. The staff, we were teaching food safety there, and the staff said, you got to see the sign that's in our private employee restroom. So I went back and I took this picture. And if you look real close, it was from 1958. So they were talking about washing hands back then. I loved it. State law and common decency require that every food handler thoroughly wash their hands after a visit to the toilet. So yeah, I love it that hand washing is not a new thing, and we just keep thinking about it and keep encouraging. Okay. If you have not done it and you're a Facebook person, I would suggest that you sign up to follow the NC State's Safe Plates Food Safety Information Center. A lot of the graphics that I've used in this PowerPoint came from the Safe Plates Food Safety Information Center. These are the folks at Raleigh and at our regional offices that have been working instrumentally with food safety all the time. They've been doing some online training. Every week this year, they've been doing online food preservation. Last Tuesday night, they did an online for about an hour and a half question and answer on Facebook about food safety. So I recommend you sign up for our Food Safety Information Center. And then the next slide, give you some other resources. Okay, the top one is NC State's Food Safety at Home Holiday Food Safety link. There's videos there. There are fact sheets there. The second one down here is the Safe Plates Food Safety Information Center. You can actually link to that Facebook Live that was recorded last week. If you're concerned about COVID and how, I think Megan's going to take us there and show it to us. This is what the page looks like. And the holiday food safety Q&A is what they did last week. Now, granted, I'm a food safety nerd and I like to listen to this stuff, but I thought it was really interesting. They spent about the first half hour talking about COVID and how it's transmitted and kinds of things that they would recommend for the holiday and what you're doing if you're having people in, how to deliver food to neighbors and friends and that sort of thing. I liked it as just you can see our food safety specialists talking and answering questions. But down the list on this list is holiday gatherings during COVID, general holiday food safety, some of the stuff we've been doing today. So I'd recommend you go there. See the social media images, those are the things that we've been showing. And then there's a whole series of food safety videos, the homegrown holiday food safety videos that you can watch. So just good things available from our folks at Safe Plates Information Center and our state specialists in food safety. I do want to say that neither Megan nor I will be available Thursday morning to answer questions. Actually, I might be online with my email, but we're not going to be answering the phone with food safety questions. But the folks at the USDA are going to be there. So if you have a food safety question Thursday morning, they're calling it Ask USDA, and ask.usda.gov has lots of questions and answers online. They actually have a chat person, but they will answer the phone too Thursday morning to answer questions. So you may want to try that. They also have a great fact sheet online called Let's Talk Turkey. So lots of choices for some information. So I'm encouraging folks, celebrate safely. And don't take a chance of getting somebody sick. We really don't want that. Thanks, Noah. Like your head. Yeah. Okay, questions. Where can we go from here?
Okay, I put one in the chat. that
Okay.
When you said you like to put warm or hot stuffing in the turkey and started out that way, and I thought about that a bit because I've heard in the past, quite a while ago, that you shouldn't do that. And I think I know why, but I do see pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it both sides, and I don't know which one, the pros, the cons, do they just cancel out?
I'm trying, my thought is I'm trying to rush it through that temperature danger zone inside the deepest part of that turkey.
I got my engineering license, and you're gonna hate this.
Okay.
In heat transfer, thermodynamics, energy fields. So I'm looking at it where you put the warm stuffing inside the bird, and the bird cools the stuffing off a little bit. The stuffing imparts some heat to the bird, but that's the inside area of the turkey. And now that's going to sit there for some period of time before it gets warm from the heat that's coming in from the oven from the outside. So that's my con thought. But I'm not sure.
Good thoughts. I do not know the answer to that. Deb, what are your thoughts?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
I have a suggestion, because this is something I did hear about, and maybe this was on that's Milk Street that I know Paul listens to, and they're talking about spatchcocking your turkey, and which means you take the backbone out, like it's, the turkey's big and round, so if you make it flat, it cooks quicker. And they said if you like that stuffing bit with the drippy things in it, then you can put the stuffing below it and take the backbone out of the turkey. It isn't pretty when it comes out. Then it lays flat on it, and you don't have to worry about any of that. So that's just a thought. It wasn't my idea. I heard it. I don't know about your turkey stuffing in a turkey. Sorry.
I'll make a quick call this afternoon to one of those food safety information center folks and make sure, because I'm seeing your logic and don't know specific. There may be some bacteria in there that keeping it, because you're right, it may keep it just right there at that incubation in that temperature danger zone for a long period of time. And would it do some spore forming kind of bacteria that when it got hot enough, it would destroy them? I don't know the answer to that. We'll see if we can find out.
What if you just added some of the turkey juices after it was done cooking to the stuffing?
Oh, you mean put it in
I know
your
it's
casserole
not quite
dish?
the same.
Not
Yeah, I know
quite
it's
the
not quite the
same.
same, but that, and of course, after you touch the internal
Right,
of multiple
right.
places on the turkey.
Yeah.
But that could work.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'm not sure I can sell it to my wife, but it sounds good.
Megan's got everybody's answer, everybody's email addresses. So we'll see if we can get you an answer specifically on that. I know Dr. Chapman talks a little bit about that, about making sure that the meat, and if you're making like sausage stuffing, that the meat is all hot as you're making that sausage stuffing, and the meat is all cooked before you put it in. He was specific to say, don't put the raw stuffing in there or the raw sausage in there on that tape from last week. So, but I'll find out and let you know. Other thoughts?
Marcia had posted a question too. It was related to soaps, and I guess she just wanted us to discuss maybe a little about antibacterial soaps versus a Castile foam soap that has essential oils. So I don't know if you can speak to that, Annie. We may have to do a little more research and get back to you, Marcia.
We may have to do a little more specific research. I know that, there is big discussion about the necessity of antibacterial soaps, and that isn't a necessity kind of thing that you can get. It's the friction of rubbing your hands under the running water, not the soap that's actually helping you get the bacteria off your hands. Angie, I know you've been studying up on this a little bit more in hand washing. Any thoughts on your point?
I'm going to just agree with what you just said because I don't
Yeah.
have anything more than that.
And don't know about your essential oils, soap specifically at all. We could do some digging on that too. But I know it's been the friction and rubbing and putting your hand, that taking that 20 seconds to get, we're actually, we're not killing it. We're throwing that bacteria down the drain. Other questions? It's good to see everybody. How you doing with the holiday challenge? I kind of like this morning's post on pumpkins and making your own lesser calorie pumpkin latte and the pumpkin yogurt item. So you're getting the holiday challenge every day. And I like them. Marcia's not.
I don't think I am.
Well, we can get you signed up. Pretty easy.
I had some other people in my group that signed up. I don't know if they signed up for you, Megan. They may have, but they're not getting daily ones either. And one of them mentioned that maybe there was a box you could check if you wanted them. Do you remember if that was the case, that you could have it or not have it? Because I couldn't remember.
I am not sure. I'll double check on that, but I can resend the link to make sure you get the daily emails again with my next email, just to be sure everyone's on the list if they want to be.
Yeah, because I know there's a big weekly topic, and then I think you can be reminded every day about something else.
The one thing I'm doing for the holiday challenge is that I'm just making turkey breast and taking a plate over to a friend of mine who's almost homebound, and we're going to sit in her garage. I picked up key lime pie. It's just 2 slices frozen, so that I didn't have the temptation of having a whole pie.
I like that.
That I would have to eat.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Just buying the appropriate size for you. Thanks for sharing. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we can go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you all so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking some time. Feel free to email us with any more questions that come up, anything you think of. And next week, same time, make sure you join us again. I'll send out a reminder email, but we are going to have our director of the Cooperative Extension here in Brunswick County, Dr. Mark Blevins, and our 4-H agent, Morgan King, speak to us about local foods, all kinds of information about buying them. I'll probably mention some cooking them and preparation and things like that. So thanks again and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.